Hey everybody, welcome back to another all new X's for show. I don't know why I add the all in there. It's either, it's never partial new X's for show. Anyway, you can check it out on the social at X is for show. As for me, I'm Nico Action and NICOACTION.
I'm really excited about you pitching this new idea where we do half of the show a new show and then we air an old one for the second half. That
like
way,
an ABC game show.
Yes, and this way we can have all new shows and just kind of new shows. Some new show. I'm TK and I'm just, here spitballing ideas all the time. You can find me at TK Elemental.
And I'm your producer, Kevo, really, and I like what you're cooking, and I think we're going to work on it. I mean, if X-Men can do half episodes dedicated to half Storm and half anything else, I don't see why we can't do the same thing.
Exactly.
Especially because this should have been called half Lifedeath number 2 and half Xavier can't keep his promises even in space.
That is correct.
I really did think this exemplified my feelings of the great moments in these episodes are super great. But the kind of off moments kind of are off a little bit. I really enjoyed a lot of Lifedeath Part 2, especially the Roro parts. And that's, of course, Aurora. That's, of course, Aurora. But, she and I are such good friends. Sometimes I call her Roro, Like, a lot of her friends probably do. Her close friends,
Rogue definitely does it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I think when the two of them hang out, people call them Rogue.
Oh, I love it. Ooh. It's just, they're the Roros, right? I love it. And the thing I think I found the most confusing about this episode, not confusing even, but after all of that big emotional power of last episode, I sort of thought they would continue to build on that. I sort of thought that we would continue to see that sort of really careful attention to the kind of emotional detail that I don't know. I mean this really positive because I did need an emotional break after last episode, but it sort of seems like they said, you thought last episode was big? Well, here's Lifedeath, but don't worry. It's not as an emotionally stressing form of Lifedeath as you're expecting.
Well, it's tough because it's not Lifedeath at all. It's not really even it's definitely not Lifedeath Part 2. But Lifedeath 1 is mostly what has happened all the way up until X-Men, the animated series, does Lifedeath Part 1. So, Lifedeath is Storm getting depowered, realizing that this is her life now. And it is not going to change. And it's issue 185, and the powers don't come back till 226. And this is no internet, nothing, nobody leaking stuff online saying, just give Claremont the 5 years he was promised and his vision will come to fruition and Storm will get her powers back. This is your life now. You are done being a mutant. You don't have powers. There were hints when she experiences the storm while she's in it, but there's no real indication that she's getting her powers back. And Lifedeath is suck it up. This is your life. This is your death. This is the death of your mutantness, but you are still alive, and this is your life. Lifedeath in X-Men the Animated Series is, don't worry, we're gonna fix this. Yeah, and that's actually totally fine. But it's just Lifedeath, a love story, is very emotional, and I think is one of those really early ones that really reminds you that the X-Men, more than any other property at Marvel, can be something that you map minority experiences onto, even minority experiences that cis white straight men have, like being disabled, being temporarily disabled, things that just most people aren't going through all the time in front of you, but that are, very valid experiences. And the animated series version of that was its own thing. I do agree with what you're saying insofar as it would be very difficult to top last week's just gut punch of a journey Max Eisenhardt, Eric Lencher saying "Be not afraid" in German to Little Leech as they both die is not really something I'm gonna be able to get through more than once or twice a year. So by comparison, Storm really confronting what it means to be, a minority, what it means to wish that you weren't a minority, what it means to struggle with your identity, to struggle with the fear of your identity. This is all really beautiful stuff. It just feels less, I am completely laid bare. And that's the Storm half of the storyline. We then have a whole other thing that is, I would be curious to know if anybody was like, and this B plot is just as good as our Storm A plot. Just as valuable, just as emotional. I didn't necessarily feel it was. And this sort of completes my feeling that I would have just made Life Death one episode. Completely divorced from anything else. I would not have split it into 1/3 of a Jubilee plays Nintendo episode and then 1/2 of a Mutants Be Fucking episode.
I saw an argument online that tried to defend the choice of being like, but look, it's like Storm touches all generations, where it was part of a story for young people, and then it was a part of a story for Charles. And I'm like, I kind of see what you're saying, but I doubt that was the intent. And it still comes across as Storm doesn't get a full episode to herself. That's mostly how I feel it comes across.
And one of the places that I think I'm the most curious about it is like when you use a term or you summon up a thing, you're using it or summoning it with like intentional specificity of conjuring that feeling. You know what I mean? Which is why when they called a Magic in the Original New Mutants miniseries Ex Infernus like 15 years ago, they were like, look how it summons up Inferno. And then they purposefully did something called Inferno that really didn't feel so inferny. And so like I find myself really aware that even Marvel does it internally at the comic level. But the one thing I do want to say about the choice of, oh my God, mommy, one of my absolute favorite motherfucking aliens in the history of Marvel Comics, Deathbird is so great. And I don't know. Hey, Ali Galactic, I bet you're just as incredible, a crazy bird lady. And I don't know who tapped into what dark bird god to get this voicing like so absurdly like Azula levels of perfect in one episode.
It is so funny you say that because immediately when she saw it, my first thought was, I wonder if this is going to be Grey Delisle voicing her, which it was not, but somebody equally as talented. I'm really hoping before all is said and done, Grey Delisle is cast as somebody, but this would have been a good one.
Oh man, I love this character so much. And it is so unbelievable to me that one of the things that the kind of, you know what, Ali Galactic saying, I actually don't care about Shi'ar shenanigans at all. I don't either. I just love Bird.
They almost made me care toward the end there, but then Charles messed it up like he always does. So even when they almost made me care, nope.
It's weird. I don't care as much about Shi'ar shenanigans in the comics. I'm always waiting to, because I feel like they're like always this close for me for making the Shi'ar cool and feel like something I want to get into. I'm weirdly one of those people that thought Xandra was a cool idea that I feel bungled, but I still think she's a cool character. But for some reason, I think because I saw X-Men, the animated series Shi'ar first, I just hadn't really gotten to a Shi'ar moment in comics reading by the time they started showing up in the animated series. I find them here very cool. I had never seen Charles have a romance until Lilandra in the animated series, and then like right after that I started finding stuff like that he had been with Amelia Voigt and all the other stuff that had happened. So I don't know, weirdly I do think that they are cool, and I think this is where they work best, where it's not 22 episode seasons where 10 of those episodes might have a lot of Shi'ar nonsense. Instead, we have limited it to definitely half of one episode, I think maybe half of one more, and probably not a lot more than that. You get some cute cameos, you get some really gorgeous variations on the original character design, great voice acting all around, you see a better version of Deathbird.
Well, I think they are setting up. This had been my point, actually. So I'm back. I want to take what we're all kind of saying, put it together. And one of the things I keep thinking is they are making it very clear to me that season 2, along with this glitch in the matrix, according to Ali Galactic, I think this finale, this Tolerance is Extinction, leading into next season, I think this sets up Imperial. I think they're doing a lot of stuff to set up new X-Men, but with things like kind of replacing Cassandra Nova with Mr. Sinister, I am left thinking, you know what? Yeah, this was an X-Men the Animated Series adaptation of Lifedeath.
Yeah, well, yes. And what's really funny is we got Lifedeath Part 2 first in the original X-Men the Animated Series. So that's just the comics Lifedeath 2 is a very different thing. But actually, weirdly, that adaptation is very faithful. So, folks, if you have never read the second comics Lifedeath, which I forget what issue it is, but it's around 200. It's before 200.
Yeah, I think if this is 180.
This is 186.
So then that's I think it's 198.
Okay. So anyway, if you never read that, and then go back. The episode where Storm goes back to Africa is basically the adaptation of that Lifedeath. So interesting that we got that. When you say, this really is an X-Men the Animated Series adaptation of Lifedeath, I talked earlier about all the ways that this is nothing like Lifedeath. And so I do think that it's very possible that you are correct insofar as that they are driving towards X-Men the Animated Series adaptation of Imperial. I just think, how insanely different is that going to be from what happened? Because the thing that you pointed out last week was, I said, can you believe that they did E is for Extinction? And you said, no, they did the Hellfire Gala Part 3. And we were both right. I mean, there's distinct elements of both. That Sentinel is iconic from E is for Extinction, but it's the Hellfire Club throwing a gala.
Iconic murder mama robot.
Yeah. So, they're kind of doing it how they're doing it, which is fine, but it just leads me to the point of even if they are driving towards Imperial, I could see that being 1/3 of an episode in season 2 rather than, a 3-episode arc where we see a lot of, as was mentioned, Shi'ar shenanigans. And speaking of Shi'arnigans, speaking of which, I want to ask the one big question this time, because I'm just curious. Do you think Charles and Lilandra are an OTP?
Well, that's tough because I mean, first of all, for me, the problem is that the term OTP is instinctively against my nature.
Yeah.
Do I think they're a great super couple? Yeah, I do, because I think they're both super fucked up, and I think it's really cute. But I would trade my entire kingdom for a Kid Gladiator. So what the fuck do I know? I think Kid Kubark is the best, And oh no, Ali Galactic, I see our team is doing such a great job putting all the pieces together. Our producer Kevin was incredible. And I just want to say, Ali, I think the term might actually be older. I think it fell out of vogue, you know. So
there's also different terms have different vogues. Like I will never forget when Peyton and Lucas started using the term TLA on One Tree Hill, and I was like, the fuck does that mean? True love always. Oh, okay. Never
and
heard
then
that.
for a while, from Gossip Girl or something, it was Endgame.
Endgame. I know that Glee used it, and then a lot of other people started using it. Yeah.
Another teen drama.
Or One
Direction. Remember what it is. Anyway,
I had a boyfriend who was like, if you ever have somebody who's like constantly like, you know, I love you, I love you, I love you, and you don't want to say it, just come up with a cute way that's your way to say I love you to each other. So then you never really have to say it. And that's like what all of those shows doing that started to make me think after a while.
Riverdale's where everybody's Endgame.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
and Riverdale must have gotten it from Glee because of Roberto.
Yes. So fair to the point of OTP being kind of antithetical to your jam, but of the Charles romances,
like canonical romances,
does the ship even float?
Yeah, of the canonical romances, this one's really good.
Okay.
I just think like there's other things that are more interesting than Charles Xavier falling in love and doing it. Like I think Charles Xavier, it's kind of gross, but like a lot of the Charles Xavier Mystique stuff from the Bendis era is kind of fascinating.
I agree.
I would rather see Charles Xavier grocery shop than Bang. I feel like that would be a lot more entertaining.
I don't know though. I feel like
how much the price of milk?
Listen, somebody found Brian Boitano sexy, and
what could a frozen banana cost?
$8 CR. So
Ali Galactic, I do feel that the only valid romance for Charles is Magneto. And I almost like, because I knew that's what Nico was getting at when he asked canonical. And I am pretty close to saying that is a canonical romance, because sometimes it's just too insane what's being said. But you
it's a relationship.
Ooh, but can I tell you my favorite Xavier relationship that is canon, but because it's disgusting and that's why I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love the way my precious Gabby has made her entire life's mission, making it clear to Xavier that he's a bad man. And like, I love Gabrielle Haller.
I mean, she had a child with him, so of all the people who think he's a bad man,
I love her. I think she's such a great
love
character.
her too. I wish that they would pull her into the Moira role. She has not had an update since the 90s, so she is still the oldest survivor of the Holocaust in Marvel Comics at this point. She's never been de-aged to a baby. Like she has nothing. She's not had no treatments.
But then how is then?
Yeah,
but David is baby.
He baby.
David is 25-ish.
Yeah,
maybe I don't know.
David hangs out.
He's got to be 30.
He hangs out in his mind palace. He gets shunted out of reality. He's fine. Poor Gabrielle Haller, who, I mean, like this is the only problem with having ever made anybody related to the Holocaust, is unless they have been frozen in a bottle of ice or de-aged to a baby. What are we doing here, man? And if it's just this baseline human lady, I don't know how you fix it, but I wish they would and bring her back, because she was a badass. She was a good lawyer.
You guys heard it here first. The next thing that the Game of Thrones guys are going to pitch is you could have defeated the Holocaust with more ice cubes.
Is that not the plot of the last season of Game of Thrones?
Actually, that's vaguely yes.
Right,
actually, no. It's the ice cubes are trying to make you the Holocaust, defeat them with fire.
Well, now let me ask you a very fiery question.
Yeah,
I know what this costume is from in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
I know this is Muir Island Saga. I know this means Bald Daddy is possessed by the Shadow King, but I don't know that that's going to happen here.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen.
Tell you,
Well, so for one
I
thing,
love this. Actually, I wonder if that's what that it was.
well, first off, it's a Skrull. It's a Skrull first. So we already knocked that one out. It's not Skrull. As soon as he walked out, my partner was like, "Oh, that's a Skrull." And then I was like, "Yeah, I mean, probably given what we're looking at here." And then it just very clearly was not a Skrull. So that's thing one out of the gate. Thing two, I don't even know if we're doing anybody goes out to space to pick him up and bring him home. I think he might just go home. So then we kick that whole part out. I don't know. I sort of feel like we just mined a whole bunch of issues for a cool costume, which, listen, there's worse things in the world of adapting what is hundreds and hundreds, thousands of issues of comics into an animated series.
I mean,
But there's better.
I also want to say, Ali Galactic, to your point that clearly this isn't Charles and it's actually a sentient turnip. The thing about it is a turnip would still be more considerate. So probably not. I don't want to foil your spoil, but I think this might just be Charles suffering from oxygen deprivation in space. And one of the things that I was a little bothered by is him being like, I will simply trap you all in school. And I wonder, is this meant to be the stuff sequence? Like, what? And the stuff with Casanova sequence?
Yeah, no. We're definitely not there yet, but I think it is very possible that it's there.
Oh, so you mean more seeding for a new X-Men season 2?
Yes. I didn't say you were wrong about that. I said
no. I'm not coming for you. I'm like,
Yeah, no. I mean, like they're doing a lot of it. It's, I don't know. It's weird that it's Mr. Sinister because that's a whole other.
Unless they make Mr. Sinister sublime. Unless they simplify and turn John Sublime into Nathan Essex, and then you can also do some of the Dominion-ish stuff with Here Comes Tomorrow.
They're not doing the Dominion stuff.
But I mean, like some of the rise of Sinister as the biggest villain of all time through Sublime and Here Comes Tomorrow. And you can even parallel House of X in it in some ways. Instead of giving us Tito Beak, which I would love, but instead of giving us Tito, they could give us Rasputin.
Yeah, I mean, it's all very possible at this point. I will definitely be interested to see what they pull. I didn't really think of it until you said it, but like that's a great example. Dovetailing Sinister stuff with Sublime stuff. That's an interesting way of doing it. And I don't the thing I like best is like any pitch like this, as insane as it might be to you, dear watcher, listener, who is an X-Men fan, who says like you could never like combine the characters of Nathaniel Essex and John Sublime. They're so different. They're doing such different things. I do think that like kind of one of the successes of this show in terms of like literally doing its job, maybe not being your thing, maybe not being my thing all the time, but doing its job, is making those sort of insane decisions to get this shit going. Let's keep it rolling. Let's keep it pushing. I would not love multiple episodes or even multiple minutes of an episode trying to explain John Sublime. I liked comics doing it. I liked the slow burn of that reveal, but we had Kick the Drug, everything that went wrong with that. John Sublime the person, Emma Frost throwing John Sublime the person out of
that one's less exciting.
Out of a building. It was a really long rolling process, and I don't think we have time to do that here. So making some interesting choices to cut stuff down and sort of fusing these two characters, I see that as very plausible.
And just to summon like whether you like it or not, I'm not here to debate anybody's, positives or negatives, but X-Men 2 did a really beautiful job synthesizing God Loves, Man Kills and elements of stories that had absolutely nothing to do with it. And I'm like blanking so hard right now. Like The Cure, and then Legion. And, I know that The Cure wasn't so fully explored in the second movie so much as talking about would you give up being a mutant, which was not like really a big part of God Loves, Man Kills. There's so much worth mining by and putting the Phoenix Saga in there. Jean becoming the Phoenix at the end of the movie and then being reborn in the third one. Think about how there is no the most popular Deadpool story, and look at how many Deadpool movies have made some money. So, I just feel like if they're going to keep combining things creatively, I only ask for a little bit more unification along the signature method. Like, for instance, if this was Lifedeath 2, then I think Motendo Lifedeath could have very well have just been Lifedeath 1. Because I don't know that Storm and Forge got a whole lot more time here than I feel they did in Lifedeath, where I feel like in this episode, it really was a Charles and Lalandra story.
Yeah, I mean, and that was kind of my thinking too, is just like, let's make Lifedeath one whole episode. And actually, it might have really worked better to do that, to make Lifedeath one episode and then combine Motendo and the Charles and Lalandra plot, because those are a little more each other's speed. It's Jubilee really having this revelation about growing up, but it's pretty lighthearted. Most of it is a video game parody / reference, which is really fun. But for all that it is Jubilee being very scared to grow up and really having to face some stuff, it's pretty chill. And the relationship between Charles and Lalandra, while it feels very large because it's a romance taking place in a space empire, it's a romance taking place in a space empire. It's inherently silly. It's inherently a little bit dramatic, a little camp, very camp, over the top, big outfits, a lot of fun stuff, but everything we're talking about here. And again, I think it speaks to that thing of like, I ask if you think Charles and Lalandra are an OTP, and it's kind of no. I mean, essentially no. And also like, it's a lot of silliness and jokes, and it's not the same thing as dealing with the ultimate fate of Scott and Jean, Madeline, Emma Frost, everything there. So I just sort of feel like I would have let Lifedeath do its own ruminating all in one space, and then save those two things here.
If I can just build on that, I think part of the problem is I don't have an OTP for anybody in the entire Marvel universe except for probably Matt and Elektra. I even think like, Wilson and Mary, I love them together, but I mean, anybody who knows me knows that I could probably write a 355-page essay on why Vanessa Fisk is like the greatest character in ever. So like, it's tough. As much as I love Logan with Jean, there's so much validity to the truth of Jean and Scott's love, and the way that they might even be divorced for 30 years, but they'd come back together for an amazing 6 final years of their life where they take care of each other living on a farm in Alaska. Like, there is so much. And, Ali Galactic, I see your comments about the Fox films, about how they really got it at times. The DNA of those films is really beautiful. I agree. There's things I really love about some of those movies. Really, truly, we've done coverage of it. We're very positive on some of them. And I see you say Rogue and Remy are an OTP for you. I unfortunately really like Rogue with Magneto, and I know what a hot thing that is, but I do love her with Remy as well. It's not that I don't love her with Remy. I also just want to say that not enough people ship Gambit with Fox.
Boo. It's funny because like I say OTP, and I mean it, but also I don't. I think that Scott and Jean are an OTP, but I prefer Scott with Emma and
Same,
or in open relationship. What worked about Krakoa for me was you just kind of can't deny that these two have something, and that they are work partners, that they have a family together, but they both
history. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But they both want a lot of different stuff that is not the other one's jam. And so, I mean, one of the reasons I just was all in on Krakoa immediately was the very not subtle revelations early on that they were in a polyamorous relationship. But like, even though it's weird, because even though I feel they are an OTP, like, one of my biggest bummers was when everybody comes out of Age of X-Men and shows up in the end of Uncanny and Scott and Jean kiss.
Oh, I mean, it's so out of nowhere and it feels so reset. And it's because I was going to make a joke, but I'd rather, instead of making the joke, I'd rather lead into it naturally. I was going to make a joke that at the end of Mystique's run, which was actually really a fascinating book at times, she is sort of thrown back into the X-Men in the form of Fox, a purposefully like 16-year-old-ish Lolita who tries to seduce Gambit, leading Rogue to the "Mama, did you seduce my boyfriend" panels. And then shortly thereafter, she winds up being the thing that makes Iceman gay. And I, find myself, when that is the relationship he has before Kitty Pryde, Mystique, I find myself feeling like sometimes characters who are so plenipotentiary when it comes to sex, they sometimes find themselves batted around. People love the idea of Scott is repressed or Scott is letting loose, but no matter what side of it is, there's a sexuality to Scott that interacts with a lot of different kinds of sexuality and potential partners, whether it's direct partners like Emma and Jean, or it's implicit partners like Scott and Logan, that sort of natural ebb and flow they have where it's very clear that they're kind of a thing, down to the Scott Summers in a Speedo. I think that's sometimes what we see happen, which kind of corrupts the possibility of an OTP. He's just too sexy to limit our imagination because he's not a real person. There's no actual children being devastated.
I hear what you're saying, and you're not wrong. I think part of it is I have a weird definition for an OTP. I will also say, now I'm really wondering about these two with the time we have left. There's been a lot of relationship stuff on this show.
Yeah.
Making love.
Oh my God, I was literally just going to bring up that they said making love. This is not a children's show. Bye.
He also said he would just like to be Lalandra's pet, and she told him that he could bark like a dog later.
And
do they even have dogs?
Well,
they're bird people.
And I want to interact with a lot of Ali Galactic's points. Ali says my ace ass hates relationship drama. And I think that is actually something that is really central to the nature of the way you have to portray a show like this. When you're talking about a TV show like X-Men, and you're thinking about adapting that source material, I think that one of the things you need to be thinking about is the fact that these have relationship drama that unfold over the course of decades, some of this, and they have to find a way to fit it in. And, not kind of like naturally the way these shows fit together, they kind of have to wind up defaulting to soap opera.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing. I just think sometimes it's a lot.
Agreed. It can be. I mean, I don't think it's too much, but it can be too much.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kevin.
I think depending on how you handle it, you want to still be able to root for these characters. I enjoy human drama, and being human is hard. So, like, I like seeing scenarios that I can relate to because relationships are hard. But frequently on a lot Sub-Zero soaps, it can devolve into the sort of behavior where you stop rooting for characters. And that's hard.
it's also just sometimes it's a timing thing, and this gets us back to Life Death should maybe have been its own episode, because we had the Scott, Jean, Maddie situation into the mutant Holocaust, into Life Death, into that also splitting with Charles and Lalandra, and that's just, the beats are very different for all of those situations, and little subtle changes I think might have made things just feel, all of these relationships I feel like are valid for this season and even can be fit into 10 episodes with the same story beats. It's just how you shuffle the deck and how you play the cards to not make it where you're just like, oh geez, these people are really going through a lot this week.
Oh boy.
Ugh. And I think that one of the things I do want to point out that I'm surprised by this show's dexterous ability to handle is not just an immensity of cast, but a need for that cast to have fluidity. When I saw Nightcrawler in the opening theme, I was emotional.
Yep.
But then he's not in the episode.
Right.
Which is so cool because they're saying Gambit might be gone and no one can take his place, but there is another mutant who is going to join these ranks and help save the world. And like that sort of fluidity of self, you know, seeing some of those images switch in and out of the theme song each week has sort of felt like a cool recap page where there's sort of some images you see every recap page. There's always that image of, you know, Wolverine going, "Ah," but like the other people around him are based on the arc and the arc's needs. And I really want to give it up to this animation team for taking the time to do that sort of really important level of production mastery that makes this feel lived in a successful way.
That's something I've been ruminating on a lot. I don't know if I share your enjoyment of it. A good example is I don't love seeing Apocalypse and Cable, because that gives me some concerns about where that's going. I also, I was really hoping that Apocalypse would get a new design, and maybe he will. Maybe this is old Apocalypse, but like, I don't know.
Maybe he'll get a pair of sexy neon green overalls.
Seeing him there in the cheesy purple animated series outfit, not my favorite thing in the world. That one has been recurring a bunch, and just having it happen in the context of Cable showing up to tell Maddie he's so sorry and then body slide. I'm just kind of like, are you giving away too much? I am famously somebody who I want to see one preview. I want to see one teaser trailer that cannot physically spoil anything. And then, yeah, that's the one. And then I never want to see another thing. I just want to watch the movie. Especially now, I don't trust marketing, editing teams to not spoil really good stuff in the film that I just want to see. And in that same way, I'm like, I don't really want to see Cable there. I just would have liked to have seen, in the opening credits, I would have just liked to have seen Cable. But seeing Nimrod and seeing, we got this cool shot of Nimrod looking out of a master mold.
And we got little Bolivar Trask just running and tripping.
Well, that was in the actual episode.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You're right. You're still talking about the theme song. There was just so much weird Sentinel shit this episode.
Yes.
All season.
But so getting that little preview of Nimrod, to me, that was that sort of, I responded to that the way I think they would have liked for me to. It just, I guess it's a tough balancing act.
And I think part of what makes it even tougher at times is the expectation of fandom is so diverse and yet so hungry. If somebody said to, us right now, come up with the best of Daredevil's Hell's Kitchen Warriors, I would insist on Gladiator. I'm sure TK, you would probably insist on someone like Typhoid. We would both have insistences on other non-Daredevil characters. And that's even a character like Daredevil, whose world is led essentially by one person at a time, just Daredevil. Consider the X-Men, who are a team of hundreds spanning a dozen something major titles plus dozens more side team titles. And then there's something like 50 X-Men that have miniseries at some point, or 20 X-Men with solo titles. It's actually really hard to facilitate meeting the needs of such a wide audience. And so when you're trying to reshape stories and you're trying to give everybody the best you can and put things in theme song openings, I guess it's going to have to involve some Mr. Sinister John Sublimes and some all we get this episode from Nimrod is an opening theme song shot. Hey, buddy.
But I did really find that Bolivar Trask moment interesting, because that is referencing a Cassandra Nova moment. It plays out really differently here. There's no 1-for-1 substitutions, but that's where you start to get into the real granularity of, okay, they decided that an important thing from E is for Extinction is that Bolivar Trask makes the Sentinels. And if there's going to be a genocide Sentinel that is bigger than all the other ones and a horrifying monstrosity and is going to go destroy Genosha, Bolivar Trask has to have made that. And Bolivar Trask then has to be the victim of his own hubris and of his own allyship with another villain. But what doesn't have to stay is that villain is Cassandra Nova.
With another villain is just like, like, what an amazingly funny thing to try to process. It's just...
Yeah, I mean, that's what we got. And in this case, it's not Cassandra Nova. It's not her doing the very like in the pith helmet, she has such an Emma Frost vibe in those early issues before you really know how bad she is.
You better not be a cunty amoeba twin dead cell. Oh god, hold on, it's a Shi'ar Mamundra when I get there.
Yes, exactly that. And somebody said that, and Beau DeMayo responded, okay, it'll just be Mr. Sinister instead. Which, 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
It's that really annoying twink in college who got way too into Memoirs of a Geisha. So
is that a person type?
Yeah.
Wow.
Certainly a person I know.
It really is. And so, just sort of like that. No, I'm going to appropriate this other culture's face paint for my own art. That's definitely a twink type. So
I'm just thinking of Titus and Kimmy Schmidt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or Gwen Stefani as a boy.
Ooh, man, I love these mutants, no doubt about it. Let's go to Genosha. Ooh, Coachella.
I love Gwen Stefani as Sinister, actually.
So one of the things that I do want to address about this particular episode that kind of stretches back to some of the earlier episodes is, and I tried to talk about it a little bit earlier, that while I do love the dexterity of accentuating all of these incredible characters, I've lost Jubilee, I've lost Beto, I've even kind of lost Scott, because Scott wasn't really the thing in the last 2 episodes. I even know he had a big moment, but that's not the Gambit moment, and that's what we're talking about. You know what I mean? Magneto, actually, by dying in last episode, and then this episode featuring so many powerful dynamic male figures, or even non-male but story leading protagonists like Storm, it even felt sort of like, wow, it's so easy to even swap Magneto out of this equation. I wonder in many ways if the true legacy of Claremont's X-Men is a mold that allows for almost any incredible, exceptional character to step into the lead as long as they're surrounded by characters who love or hate them, leading them to aspire to greater. And that's one of the things that I think made Gambit's sacrifice so successful last episode. Gambit doesn't just self-sacrifice. He self-sacrifices in such a big, loud way that mon ami, you will remember his name. And it's all a very ratatouille sort of, this is delicious, oh no, it was cooked by a rat kind of situation. And so, I am, number one, very excited about the Mad Engine line that's going to involve this glowing purple. But number two, also really positive on the idea that the X-Men is never really 5 people. And I wish the comics could get that as well as this show could.
I want to go back to, though, you mentioned a bunch of people that you missed, and you pointed out, like, Magneto, Scott, great examples of, like, the story can really adapt to them and can adapt to lose them for episodes. But the first person you mentioned is Jubilee. And the person type that you described, you said, like, a powerful character that is surrounded by somebody who loves or hates them, allowing them to aspire to be something great. Is that her? Is she one of those?
Yes, because people have more faith in Jubilee than Jubilee has in Jubilee. And the thing is, Jubilee never even in the TV show, her protagonism is Kitty Pryde strong, and she never really lets them down. One of the core tenets of a Wolverine girl, and the Wolverine girl is kind of like the ultimate Robin archetype manifested, is that she will literally be able to resurrect you from a drop of blood. A Wolverine girl will do whatever it takes to save her, whoever that Wolverine is or her charge is. There's a senseless self that I think we do see Jubilee put into her love of Sunspot.
Are the rest of the X-Men that are at the mansion that?
Yes, every one of them has at least 2 people who would sign off that they're not a danger to themselves, that they are here to save the world.
I think that's not the bar that you set earlier, but I get what you're saying.
Listen, if you're trying to be a minority member against the universe saving the world in spite of itself, you do what you can.
I mean, I guess I'm just, I'm also missing Beast. I'm missing Wolverine. I'm missing...
I was actually going to specifically say, I was surprised you didn't say Wolverine, who's gotten very little focus. Beast has at least been like the camera man for the X-Men a little focus, bub.
But then when you have 2 episodes without them in a row, it's distinctly noticeable. And Jubilee got Motendo, so she really had a feature all her own. But Logan, actually, I think it's really brave not to really give Logan that much. It's just so noticeable because it never happens. It never happens that he is not made the default star of the show in some capacity.
And when he's not, it's the archetype that he set where you'll literally say to yourself, oh, that's the Wolverine character. What was his name on The Gifted?
It makes...
Eclipse.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes me wonder...
kind of Warbird, but sorry, go ahead.
It makes me wonder how much credibility there is to Nico's theory. I don't know. It would be pretty wild if Hugh Jackman's Wolverine in Deadpool and Wolverine is this Wolverine, but it does almost feel like they were kind of asked by this point, with how little Wolverine there is. It does feel like a specific effort not to have a lot of Wolverine in this, at the very least to make sure that there's proper synergy, so that they are getting people hyped about Wolverine, but this doesn't blow everything they have on him and ruin the excitement before he can appear in the film. It does feel like an effort.
I also just think it's really great that they have him, I guess, just chewing on a toothpick. They really want that image because they still know you think it is what it's supposed to be. And he's not Skinner Sweet, you guys. He is not a sexy, complicated vampire at the turn of the century just chewing on a toothpick. Okay? It's not happening. Though if Raphael Albuquerque ever gets staffed to an X-Men Wolverine title, that'd be really beautiful. So the next other kind of that I do want to point out is, guys, we're a pretty decent amount of way into this season. There is less to go than there is down. And one of the things that I am really excited for is with Bright Eyes. I do think we are probably returning to the world of Mojo. I
I
think
don't think you're right about that. That's so
I'm
funny.
fine with it. I'm fine with being wrong.
I love your pitch for why. It's not that I'm like, Nico, that's a dumb idea. It's
Right.
that I feel like it's not that. I feel like they won't use Mojo twice in a season, but I love the reference. Like, I love that that's the reference that you noticed for it.
And can you remind me? Oh, you think it's Scott related?
I could see that.
I also think it could be Dazzler.
I think we said that once as well. But I could see it being Mojo in terms of, it would be interesting if then like Mojo is concentrated to this season, that we don't see him again. It would be interesting if like that's even part of the intention of Life Death being spread across 2 episodes, and then Mojo would have been spread across 2. Like if they're doing like arcs that are contained to season 1 so that season 1 has a cohesive feel as a full season, and then maybe next season we'll have different stuff. You know? I would be interested in that.
There's also just some other, like, let's call them annual villains that I think they could probably get in there, like My Precious Arcade.
Yeah. I mean, I could definitely see that. They never did an arcade episode of the animated series, did they?
I don't remember them doing one, and he's such a tough character because, like, he is a little bit the human dark web equivalent of Pennywise. And so, like, he really does kind of conjure some real world problematic stuff. One of the things that I find so engaging about Arcade is his limitless resource network never feels too implausible because it's always ridiculous. It's not that his plans are so good. It's that you just cannot possibly be prepared for them because they are so bonkers.
Yeah.
It is one of the things that makes Arcade work for me so well.
I like that. And also, no, he has never been in the animated series, so that would be a particularly interesting one.
Especially versus Jubes.
Yeah. Yeah, very interesting.
Although I don't know that you could do him and Mojo in the same season, considering the way they just did him.
Yeah, you would want to do it. You would want to do it differently. But he would be an interesting little bad. You know, he's hired by the big bad next season to put the X-Men through their paces in some capacity. But you're right. I mean, Arcade is such a stylistic X-Men villain, and those are very, very fun. Ali Galactic, yes, he was in X-Men Evolution, but never X-Men the Animated Series. Yeah, I mean, there's, I even, depending on what they do and what they have written out and who knew what when, like, I think also horticulture, the old ladies that are obsessed with plants, that are regular villains in the Krakoan era.
Are they regular villains in the Krakoan era, or did they get used a couple of times, shunted off to the Unlimited title, and now have fallen into the background as the only thing that matters is Orcus?
Okay, you have an opinion. I hear you. I don't know. They got some good screen time.
Yes, they got some really good screen time. For that, I am very grateful. But it is that thing where the Slingers got 12 issues in a year and then didn't appear for several years.
Several? I mean, like 2 decades. More than that. God, it's such a bummer too because they're so cool.
As Ali Galactic says, evil botanist, golden girl. I was at evil botanical perverts. Evil botanist, golden girls was such a great gimmick for a villain. It really was.
Yes, and I don't think we'll lose them when Krakoa ends. So that's something I'm at least excited for. But like, I could see that type of villain showing up. I see a lot of potential there.
All right, let's bring this beautiful baby on home. I've had a great time talking about Life Death 2, even though it felt like maybe this episode was kind of devoid of Life Death in the ways that I wanted it. Forge in the Booty Shorts is a foundational memory for me as a kid. Yeah. It's like that and Slumber Party, man.
Yeah.
So that's
and also the Barry Windsor Smith Forge as like kind of soft boying the hypersexual forge of the booty shorts. And this show isn't helping. I mean, where's he getting those abs from?
Well, and I just want to say about the Barry Windsor Smith of it all. I one time said to a friend of mine, Barry Windsor, and like the guy's the friend I said it to was like an artistic genius. Like, he's like Andy Asshole instead of Warhol. I couldn't get there. It's fine, but he would appreciate it. Not at all.
Andy Warhol.
Yes. I one time said to him, Barry Windsor Smith draws perhaps the most beautiful comics in the entire world. And he replied to me, well, if you only drew one issue a year, yours would also be beautiful.
Everybody's right. Everybody in that story is correct.
So that's my whole Barry Windsor Smith story.
It is an important one. It is true. They are so beautiful, and I think that's a very valid reason for why.
I really look forward to what the rest of this season brings, no matter what Bright Eyes is, as long as it isn't an ode to Ferrell scratching out Wolfsbane's eyes. I think I can be pretty excited about the story. I think this episode had a lot of really great things in it that set up the potentiality of what comes next. Changing the idea to Storm regaining her powers in this moment was a really interesting idea because it made Storm's entire powerless journey 4 or 5 episodes. And that's not the same thing, even to scale. So, like, I'm a little surprised by it. But the transformation, hearkening to one of my favorite eras of Storm's look, that Alan Davis redesign, that really beautiful, swoopy take on the Cockrum, is one of the most beautiful things that I can think of. And I just loved seeing the goddess in her power. This is one of those moments. This is, like, really ascendancy. And it was excellent to get to be a part of.
Yeah, I completely agree. We got another magical girl transformation. I really love that they just are going through with them. Does it make any sense? No, but it's perfect.
No, she can do it. She can canonically do this, especially in space,
especially in the animated series, because it's the first thing you see in the first episode when they're at the ball. Yeah, I mean, it's great to see this new look. It is fun all around. Yeah, there's stuff that we could pick at for sure. If I was sitting in a pitch room reading these scripts, I might want to edit some stuff. I might want to see things done differently, but it's not the type of thing where I'm like, well, this is just unwatchable. It is, in fact, very watchable, really fun, really engaging, beautiful, interesting stuff that I really did not expect for the show. I thought it'd be fun. I thought it'd be good, but it's doing stuff I really did not think it was going to do. And for that, I'm very grateful and very excited to keep pushing through.
Yeah, I feel like where I've been wrong, that I would have given it a B+, just for being wrong, I want to give it the A-. Just for being surprised they went there, I want to give it the A-. I just feel impressed by where they chose to take their gumption moments.
Yeah.
Kevo, I really would love to get your take as a not outsider, but certainly not quite as I live in the X-Men bubble.
Well, and, I wasn't I'm not, an X-Men comics person the way everyone else is. I wasn't an X-Men the Animated Series person the way a lot of people are, but I am a lot of things that this show is. I really love children's entertainment. I especially love children's entertainment when it is trying to strive for something that can grow with its audience and be reflected upon well. And so I think a lot of the beats of what they're doing on this show are great. And when it comes to rewatchability, even when we feel like the dialogue is hammy sometimes, the art is beautiful. Ali Galactic brought up that scene of Storm flying through the mountains. Yeah, we got emotional during that too. And part of what I thought about during that, while thinking about that is, the music on this is beautiful. It's the Newton brothers from the Flanagan verse that we love so much. And then the writer of this episode, who wrote the first part, is Charlie Feldman, who I mentioned a few weeks ago, is also a writer on Fraggle Rock. Actually, right now, they are on a panel with John Tartaglia for Fraggle Rock that I forgot is tonight that I'm missing. Gosh darn it. This is the second time in a week that I'm missing being able to chat with John Tartaglia on some kind of live panel.
I just want to say that John Tartaglia was so nice to us the time we hung out with him in Disneyland.
He was, and he did a great version of Grim Ghost live with puppets. And go watch Fraggle Rock because that's amazing too. And it's really awesome seeing the strides that are being made in children's entertainment between stuff like My Beloved Fraggles and stuff like this. It's really interesting. Making love was an interesting phrase to put in this episode. So we're gonna see how children's entertainment this program stays. But I'm in. I'm down. It's certainly fun.
I can't wait. I mean, I really hope that your incredible partner Jake can join us for some part of the finale coverage. Your incredible partner Jake. I'm going to keep saying that way because they have committed to doing a very special Green Lantern episode with me. That I am in my little Sinestro Kyle Rayner. I can't take it. So I'm so excited. I really hope we can get Jake on here to talk about some of their very, very different opinions on a lot of X canon from my own. It's really great to have somebody come in and just like Ali is saying, when I said, I feel like, it's about different, perspectives. Ali's been bringing in those different perspectives all episode, not always agreeing with us, but always having respect for our time and our thoughts. And that's really what I think makes the X-Men at their best is respect for all ideas. And I think the idea that this era of X-Men comics is like, no, exterminate your ideas is part of the problem. And so it's really nice that even if the animated series, did its very own X-Gene wedding, I really appreciate that they are finding subtle ways to remind us of the human moments that exist outside of the war zone, because that's something that I think in this day and age could be very important to people in a lot of parts of the world.
I really agree. Little disappointed that we didn't get an Aqua song like Happy Boys and Happy Girls.
My
Hero.
you want to say goodbye.
That also would have been a good one. That My Oh My would have been good for Charles and Lilandra. Happy Boys and Happy Girls would have been great for Storm getting her powers back.
I would also like to point out, if the season ends with some kind of reset, if only I could turn back time.
Yep,
Little
100%.
sliding doors, right?
So there's
You know
still
what they
time.
say. No one expected.
You know what the Monty Python boys say.
Nobody expected the Spanish Inquisition.
It's very true. Also, the last issue of Dead X-Men came out. The final Bjork song was Hyper Ballad, which I think was top on my list of guesses.
It sure was.
I maybe would have done It's Not Up to You, which I think would have been very funny. But, we just keep on trucking through X lore.
I can't wait. And tasty cake. It's so great that you were able to make it to the party. That would give you attendance credit at the event. So consider yourself at the panel. You get the free pin on the way out the door. So, I want to thank you all for being a part of this journey. I've come to realize I'm not a big fan of the classic X-Men animated series, but that actually does not stop me from being a humongous fan of this show. The first couple of weeks, I was like, fine, I guess we can put it on. And this morning when Kevin was like, I know you have work shortly, I was like, okay, but we can put it on right now. And he was like, no, I'm not pressuring. And I'm like, but we could put it on right now. And so it's really nice that I was not the biggest fan of the original. And I'm like, yeah, okay, no, it's 7:55. Why aren't we watching?
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool. But Kevo, other than helping me get my X-Men fix as early as possible, where can everybody find you on the interwebs?
You can find me on the socials at Kev O'Reilly. That's KEVOREALLY. T, where can the folks that don't find you, sir?
At TK Elemental. Nico, where can everybody find you?
You guys can find me all over this amazing network making awesome jams like this. This is my X-Men theme remix. You can check that out at Nico Action Music, or you can check out my personal shit at Nico Action. That's NICOACTION. Hey, but do the three of us a favor. One favor for each of us, because we're all three very nice people. Like, comment, and subscribe, but only say nice things. I'm sensitive. right? But then if you could do us 3 more favors, one for each of us, that would be cool. But all 3 of these are for you. Number 1, do us a favor, stay safe, scary world out there. And it can be stuff like this episode that reminds you that there's beauty inside of you and you can fly through the mountains too. Number 2, you got to be brave. Just like Storm, you got to crawl through that tiny little space so that that weird bird infection stops attacking Forge. But number 3, do us a favor and evolve daily because you too have the power inside of you, right? So until next time, do those things. We think you're great and we'll see you.